Knowing and using the right tactics in doubles is so important, especially if you want to beat players who might be technically or physically better than you.
So in this video, we're going to share 3 highly effective tactics that we've not mentioned on the channel before, and you can start using these to improve your game straight away. Our first tactic is to not lift back to the same corner. Now that might sound ridiculously simple, but let's lift the lid off this tactic and explain how you can use it to its full advantage.
So, as you can see here, if you lift back to the same corner, your opponent is on balance after their first shot because they haven't had to move, and they're therefore able to hit a better shot. In comparison, lifting to the other side, even if you only lift from the inside tramline to the other inside tramline, makes your opponent move 5.2 metres rather than 0. And the benefits of this are huge. They'll get more tired, they'll be less on balance and therefore likely to play a worse shot. And their partner will feel like they need to move back to help them, which creates gaps in the court.
Now, of course, nothing in badminton is quite that simple. So we've got 2 important points that you need to remember when implementing this tactic. Firstly, you need to make sure your lift is good quality. It needs to be high enough so that it goes over your opponent at the front. Otherwise, they'll easily intercept it, and you may as well have lifted straight. It also needs to be a good length and reasonably into the corner. Otherwise, your opponent won't have to move as far, reducing all of the benefits that we mentioned a minute ago.
And second, we're not saying to categorically never lift to the same corner. As we're sure you know, there are rarely any definitive rules in badminton. So 2 examples of where lifting to the same corner might be good are if your defence is a lot better than your partner's, or if you add deception to your lift, forcing your opponents to readjust their footwork and take it late. But yeah, in general, try to implement this tactic of not lifting repeatedly back to the same corner, and hopefully you'll start noticing how many more points you win just because of this one simple change.
And it's not just that first tactic that will help you win more points. So we'll tactic 2, not letting your opponent move in straight lines. As we've mentioned in previous videos, humans are fastest when they're moving in straight lines, hence why the 100-metre race is done on a straight line and not round the bend. The same applies to badminton. You're much faster when moving in a straight line. So, how do you make sure your opponents aren't moving in straight lines?
Well, there are 2 very general scenarios in badminton. Your opponents are in an attacking front and back formation or a defensive side-by-side formation. And it's when your opponents are in this defensive formation where we see a lot of people make the wrong tactical decision. But combining our next 2 tips will hopefully ensure that you always make the right decision in the future.
So our first tip is to use more shots to the middle of the court, and this has a few benefits. It can create confusion between your opponents as they don't know whose shot it is, and it makes them move a further distance, both forwards and sidewards.
And lastly, it reduces the angles that your opponents can play, meaning it's harder for them to play tight cross-court net shots or quick cross-court lifts that are often difficult to return. This tactic of using shots to the middle applies to a variety of shots, but it's most effective for your drop shots and mid-court shots, especially when you're slightly under pressure.
Now, our second tip works a lot better if you combine it with our first tip, and this is to occasionally use width to the tramlines on these same shots. These shots are riskier and can increase the angles for your opponents, but if you only ever play shots to the middle, they're going to both stand closer to the middle and likely turn their body position to make it easier and quicker for them to move to the shuttle. By keeping your placement varied, your opponents will have to twist and turn, and they'll never know where your shot's going to go, so they can't anticipate it.
Similar to tip 1, there's no definitive rules in badminton, as every situation is slightly different, and every opponent will have different strengths and weaknesses. But in general, try to avoid playing shots where your opponents can move forwards in simple straight lines.
Okay, let's move on to our third tactic. To begin, we want you to think back to the last time you lost a match. Did you feel like you were under pressure and that there wasn't any space on the court to hit into? And did this lead to you making more mistakes than you would normally?
The chances are you've felt like this before, and this is very common at every level of the game. For every better player you play, you feel like there's more and more pressure and less space. And the bad news is that this feeling never entirely goes away. When we played the world number 1s last year, we definitely felt like this. At times, we thought we were playing 3 people. But the crazy thing is, after watching the match back, we realised it wasn't true. There's always more space than you think.
So this tactic is about having the mental clarity and composure to find the space, even when you feel like you're under pressure. But how do you do this in a practical sense?
Well, we appreciate how difficult this can be, But one example is to go against your natural instincts to lift in certain scenarios, and instead try to block into space. Like you can see here, one of our patrons could have blocked this shot rather than lifting it. This, of course, requires good racket skills and vision, but so many times it will make you go from losing the rally on the next shot to instead being on the attack.
And what's perhaps the most difficult thing is practicing your mental clarity and composure to avoid panicking and playing the wrong shot or even making a mistake. One exercise we do to replicate these situations is to play 3 opponents. This is really difficult at first, but like with anything, the more you practice and the more you practice with real purpose, the better you'll get.
Players can also often have this feeling of there's no space on the court right from the start of the rally, but having an effective serve and return strategy can hugely help this. So if you're unsure of what serve and returns to do, we'll link both of our mixed doubles and men's doubles videos on this topic here for you.
We hope you found those videos useful, and if you've enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a like, smash the subscribe button if you haven't already, and we'll hopefully see you on one of those videos. Bye.